You make decent money. Not yacht money, but enough that you shouldn't be checking your bank account before ordering a pizza. And yet, here you are. The balance doesn't lie. The math doesn't add up, because the math you're doing in your head is missing the invisible holes in your wallet. This isn't about lattes or avocado toast. It's about something way sneakier. Something that scales up exactly as your income grows, like a financial shadow. It's called lifestyle creep. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it. By the end of this, you'll know exactly where your money goes, the psychological trap that keeps you broke, and the dead simple rule that stops it forever. Let's go. You get a raise. You feel rich for about 12 minutes. Then, almost by magic, your spending rises to meet your new income. 6 months later, you look around and nothing has changed except your direct deposit number. Researchers call this lifestyle creep. It's the tendency for non-essential spending to increase as income increases, which sounds obvious, but the scary part is how unconscious it is. Think about the last time you upgraded something after a pay bump. A slightly nicer apartment, a car that didn't make that weird sound, weekly DoorDash instead of monthly. You didn't blow your money on a speedboat. You just slowly turned luxuries into defaults. That's the creep. The problem isn't that you're irresponsible. The problem is that your definition of normal is a moving target that always costs exactly your current salary. There's an older, fancier name for this, the Hedonic Treadmill. It's the observed human tendency to return to a stable baseline of happiness after positive or negative events. Win the lottery, you fork for a few months, then back to your regular level of daily contentment. Get paralyzed? Devastating. Then a year later, most people report similar life satisfaction as before. The treadmill applies to purchases too. New gaming PC with the liquid cooling and the RGB everything? You're a god for a weekend. By Tuesday, it's just the machine you do your laundry spreadsheets on. The thrill decays, but the credit card bill does not. And yet we keep chasing the next upgrade because our brain whispers, this one will last. It never does. Accepting that is the first mental shift that actually saves money. Let's get the avocado toast joke out of the way. Financial gurus love to tell you that cutting small pleasures will make you rich. If you just stopped buying coffee, You'd have a down payment in 7 years. Here's the reality. Small pleasures are not why you're broke. You're broke because housing, transportation, and food, the big three, have inflated way faster than wages, while simultaneously becoming social status battlegrounds. A millennial or Gen Z adult in a city isn't overspending on brunch. They're spending 50% of income on rent, 20% on a car note they felt pressured into, and the rest on a lifestyle that looks modest but is built on subscriptions and convenience fees that didn't exist 30 years ago. Avocado toast is a rounding error. The big three are the engine. That's where the creep does its real damage. Here's a modern example that hits the 16 to 30 crowd like a truck. Cars. Specifically, the monthly payment mentality. You walk into a dealership not asking how much does this cost, but what's the monthly payment? Dealers love this. They can stretch a loan to 72 or 84 months to make the number look small. You drive off feeling like you won. You didn't. You just signed up to pay $700 a month for a depreciating asset for the next 7 years, including interest that can total thousands over the loan's life. Now add creep. You got a promotion, so you trade in the sensible sedan for a truck with leather seats because you need it for camping, a trip you take once a year. The payment jumps $200. You adjust. You're still broke. The car is never the problem you think it is, but it's often the biggest monthly drain after rent. And unlike rent, you're also paying insurance, gas, maintenance, and the quiet shame of a vehicle that costs more than your net worth. You know what didn't exist in 1995? Paying $14.99 a month to listen to music you don't own. $15.99 for TV shows you fall asleep to, $12.99 for cloud storage of memes, $9.99 for a workout app you opened twice, $11.99 for a game pass you forgot to cancel, and $4.99 for an editing app you promised yourself you'd learn. Add them up. Conservatively, the average person has 4 to 6 subscriptions draining between $50 and $120 a month without thinking. These companies bank on inertia.
They don't need you to love the service. They just need you to never hit cancel. This is pure lifestyle creep in digital form. It doesn't feel like spending because you never see a receipt. You just see slightly less money at the end of the month. When you audit your bank statement, which you absolutely should do right now, you'll find at least one subscription you forgot existed.
That's free money you're giving away for nothing. Housing is where the creep gets existential. The old rule says spend 30% of your income on rent. In many cities, that rule is a historical artifact, like a floppy disk. People routinely pay 40%, 50%, more. But here's the creep part. When your income rises, you don't just keep the same apartment and pocket the difference. You upgrade. You tell yourself you deserve a place with in-unit laundry, a gym, a balcony. All that does is reset your savings rate to zero. A specific example. If you make $4,000 a month and spend $1,200 on rent, you have $2,800 for everything else and saving. If you get a raise to $5,000 and move to an $1,800 apartment, your take-home after rent goes to $3,200. You gained $400 in breathing room, but your lifestyle now demands an extra $600 in fixed costs before you even buy groceries. You feel richer, but your actual margin improved by almost nothing. That's the trap. And breaking a lease or moving is psychologically huge, so the expensive apartment becomes a golden cage. Let's talk about the modern miracle of never cooking. DoorDash, Uber Eats, Postmates, incredible for a Thursday night when you're dead. Financial poison when it becomes a weekly habit. A $14 burrito turns into $23 after fees, tax, and tip. Do that 3 times a week, and you're spending an extra $100 a month just for the privilege of not walking 6 minutes. Over a year, that's a decent used MacBook. Now, apply lifestyle creep. When you were broke, you cooked pasta at home. Then you got a job. Suddenly, ordering in feels reasonable. Then you get a raise. Now it's, I deserve the sushi place. The incremental cost per meal doesn't register because each order is just a slightly larger number than last year. But stacked across a month, food becomes a top 3 budget killer, right next to rent and car. And you have almost nothing to show for it except a recycling bin full of containers. Here's how creep works in practice, using a single running example to make it stick. The gaming PC. You save up, build a beautiful rig, $1,200. You're happy, but then you get a new job. Suddenly the monitor feels small. You need a 4K display to fully appreciate the graphics, $500. Then the keyboard feels clacky in the wrong way. Mechanical upgrade, $150. Then the chair hurts your back after long sessions. Ergonomic gaming chair, $400. Then your friends are playing in 7.1 surround sound. Headset upgrade, $120.
The PC itself is still $1,200, but the ecosystem around it has silently doubled in cost. None of those purchases were individually insane. Each one was justified. And yet, your gaming hobby now costs $2,500 a year when you factor in games and peripherals. The creep didn't happen in one trip to Micro Center. It happened in 20 small clicks. That's how it always happens. Psychologists call it the Diderot Effect. Denis Diderot, an 18th century French philosopher, wrote about receiving a beautiful scarlet dressing gown. It was so elegant that everything else in his room suddenly felt shabby. He spiraled into replacing his desk, his chair, his prints on the wall, until he was broke and unhappy. The new gown created a cascade of consumption because humans crave coherence. We want our stuff to match our identity. When you get a raise, your self-identity shifts. You're a professional now, so you buy professional-looking clothes, professional-looking furniture, a professional-looking car. The raise isn't extra money, it's an identity tax. You're not spending on things, you're spending on the alignment between how you see yourself and how your environment looks. Recognizing that this drive exists is half the battle. The other half is decoupling your self-worth from your consumption patterns, which is hard because every ad you've ever seen was engineered to prevent exactly that. So what do you actually do? The advice that changes everything is anti-creep pay your future self first automation. The rule is simple. Whenever your income increases, raise, bonus, tax refund, side hustle cash, you immediately divert 50% of the increase into savings or investments before it touches your checking account. Not after you've seen what's left, before you even sense the money exists. If your paycheck goes up $400 a month, you set an automatic transfer of $200 to a high-yield savings account or a brokerage.
You live on the remaining $200 increase. You still get a lifestyle upgrade, just half. Over 3 years of raises and job hops, this one rule can silently build tens of thousands of dollars, while you still feel like you're living better. It's the only known counter to the hedonic treadmill because it tricks your brain into keeping your consumption baseline artificially lower. You're gaming your own psychology. Remember the gaming PC cascade? Let's replay it with the 50% rule. You get a job that pays $800 more per month. Instead of absorbing all of that into your lifestyle, you auto-divert $400. Now, when you want the 4K monitor, you have $400
Extra spending power. You wait a month, you buy it. But the ergonomic chair? That might take 2 more months of waiting because you're only using the non-saved half. You're forced to prioritize. That delay is everything. It turns impulsive, I deserve it, into intentional. Is this worth 2 months of my upgrade budget? Most things fail that test. The PC ecosystem stays at $1,200 plus maybe one meaningful upgrade a year instead of a runaway train. This isn't about deprivation, it's about speed limits. Creep wins when it happens fast. A forced slowdown lets your preferences stabilize. Diverting 50% is great, but park it somewhere smart. High-yield savings accounts are paying around 4 to 5% right now, which is free money with zero risk. For longer-term growth, broad market index funds like an S&P 500 ETF historically return about 7 to 10% annually over decades. The keyword is decades. This isn't trading. It's planting a tree you'll sit under later. A quick scenario. If you sock away $300 a month starting at 22 and the market averages 7% after inflation, you're looking at over $500,000 by 62. Wait until 32 to start, you'd need to save nearly double that per month to catch up. The difference isn't just contribution, it's compound interest working on those early dollars for an extra 10 years. Lifestyle creep robs you not just of today's money, but of all the future money that money would have grown into. It's stealing from future you, and future you is going to be pissed. One of the creepiest sources of creep is your group chat. Your friends go to a pricey brunch, take a trip to Mexico, buy festival tickets. If you say no, you feel like the broke one. But here's what they don't post: the credit card balance, the parental help, the fact that they're financing that trip over 12 months. You're comparing your behind the scenes to their highlight reel. A direct example: your buddy leases a new BMW. He looks successful. You feel your Corolla shame. What you don't know is that lease is $650 a month for 36 months with a 10,000-mile cap, and he's sweating every time he drives to his parents' house. Social pressure doesn't show the spreadsheet, it just shows the logo. When you spend to keep up, you're buying an illusion for an audience that's too busy worrying about their own illusion to notice yours. This is not a lecture about living like a monk. Some upgrades genuinely make life better. A place with no mold, a reliable car so you don't miss work, therapy, good shoes that don't destroy your feet. The line isn't between spending and not spending. It's between spending that solves a real problem and spending that just raises your default without moving your happiness needle. A useful mental filter. If I didn't tell anyone about this purchase, no Instagram, no mentioning it to friends, would I still want it? If the answer is no, you're buying status, not utility. Status is an infinite game with no final boss. You'll never win. Once you stop playing, your bank account breathes a sigh of relief. Here's a practical move you can do in 15 minutes. Open your last 3 months of bank and credit card statements. Categorize every transaction into 3 buckets: needs, wants, and regrets. Needs are rent, utilities, basic groceries, minimum debt payments. Wants are things you actively enjoyed or used. Regrets are subscriptions you forgot, impulse buys that sat in the closet, late-night DoorDash that made you feel sick. You'll likely find that 5 to 15% of your spending lives in the regrets bucket. That's not avocado toast. That's money you spent and literally got nothing from. Eliminating those first is the easiest financial win possible. Then take half the wants budget and direct it to savings. You'll barely notice the change in your daily life, but your savings rate will jump. Lifestyle creep is the silent reason your income grows, but your savings don't. The Hedonic Treadmill ensures new purchases stop making you happy fast. The big 3, housing, transport, food, do the most damage. Subscriptions drain you passively.
The Diderot Effect makes one upgrade trigger a cascade. Social pressure makes you buy things for an audience that isn't watching. The 50% diversion rule is the simplest and most effective antidote. Delaying upgrades forces you to separate real needs from identity buying. The money you save early compounds into serious wealth. An audit of 3 months' spending reveals thousands in regret purchases you can eliminate painlessly. None of this requires you to stop enjoying your life. It just requires you to stop letting your spending autopilot decide your future. You're not bad with money. You're just running outdated software in a system designed to extract every extra dollar from your rising income. Install the update. Pay yourself first. Delay the upgrades and let time do the heavy lifting. You'll still get your gaming PC, your trip, your nice apartment. You'll just get them without the quiet panic of a near-zero bank balance. And if this clicked, do the thing. Tap like, subscribe, hit the bell. It tells the algorithm to send this to someone else who's wondering why their decent salary feels like a part-time job. See you in the next one.